Reactions.
Our reactions. And we're talking about how does our culture celebrate the idea of revenge. You talked a little bit about this in your sermon.
Yeah, I talked about a couple of different films that have been popular through the years. If you're older, maybe you remember the Charles Bronson Death Wish films that are all about revenge, or maybe the John Wick films. But I think there are lots of different ways that our culture really emphasizes the importance of getting even and of evening the score, whether we see it in the media or whether we see it in how we interact with one another, or whether we see it in how relationships go and the need to kind of even the scales.
Yeah. I was thinking about this of how if you're going to quit your job, then that idea of take this job and shove it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to do it, then let your boss know everything you were thinking before you go. Burn the bridge. Obviously, that's destructive, but it's hard to get away from that mindset of this idea that it might be satisfying to get your revenge.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with a difficulty in trusting that God is working in the midst of these situations. And so the idea of responding to evil with good, or loving those who wish us harm, that doesn't work unless we have trust that God is working in the midst of the situation, and that ultimately God's justice is what's going to prevail.
Yeah, even if we don't see it, we know that eventually it will happen that way.
Yeah. I think of the passage in Romans where Paul talks about leaving room for the justice of God in situations. And really, by not retaliating, that's what we're doing. We're creating space and leaving space for God to do God's work, rather than taking it upon ourselves to do it. But yeah, we can see this emphasis on retaliation, getting even, revenge, all throughout our culture.
Yeah. I know there's been some research in areas of psychology that talk about the idea of getting revenge. We think there's going to be a huge relief for us. We're going to feel good about it. But in reality, those who try to take revenge actually feel worse afterwards than those who don't do that. Yeah. It speaks to how we're wired and how we're supposed to be reacting to things.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't taste as sweet as we think that it will when we imagine it and when we fantasize about it. So we hope your groups are off to a great start, and we are praying for you and looking forward to hearing stories about how God is working in your groups as you meet. So God bless you as you launch this first week of discipleship groups.